Hi, it's Andy with a Friday preview, and we are continuing our look at Romans chapter 5 this week. We are moving into the next section of this chapter, verses 5 through 11. And kind of strange what I did last week. I actually cut off in the middle of a sentence, and I rarely do that, but verse 5 is kind of a hinge verse between the first four verses and then the next six verses to follow. And really, we could look at Romans 5, 1 through 11, all as one unit, but I knew I couldn't preach all of that in 1 week. So breaking it up where I did. This week, we are going to continue with the idea of hope. But what Paul does is he ties that idea of hope between the idea of justification in verse 1, that we are justified by the blood of Christ, with reconciliation in verse 11. And so the hope that we have is found certainly in our justification, that we have a right standing with God. But justification is a legal term. It means that we have been made right in some way, that we have been justified in some way. But reconciliation is about relationship. And so the idea is that, yes, we were justified, and we can have hope enough in that. But the fact that we have a relationship with God, that He desires a relationship with us, that He made the way to have a relationship with us, that indeed should bring us hope. So these verses this week discuss the idea of this hope with the idea from the perspective of God's love through the Holy Spirit, through the sacrifice of Jesus, the Trinity being mentioned in these verses, and that if God had the power to save us from destruction, He will sustain us into the future. So I look forward to this week, Romans chapter 5, verses 5 through 11. And then next week, we get into the reason that we need to be justified. Certainly we're sinners. We're ungodly ourselves, as Paul writes in verse 6, but that stems from the actions of our initial ancestors, Adam and Eve. And so we'll get to that next week. But this week, let us celebrate, let us rejoice, as Paul says, in knowing that we are not only justified, but that we are reconciled. We are not only with legal standing, but we can have a relationship with the Creator of the universe.